She banged on my door screaming, "You can't live here! This is community property!" Her voice echoed across the dusty old ranch I'd just bought for $1 and a handshake. I stood there on my porch, still holding the hammer I was using to fix the railing, wondering if I'd stepped into some kind of prank. The land stretched for acres, fenced, deeded, and older than the HOA itself. But this woman, she acted like she owned the whole valley. She stormed up the path with 2 other neighbors following her like backup dancers, waving a printed HOA violation notice that looked like it came straight out of a Word document. "This property falls under our community association," she said, jabbing her finger at my chest. "You can't make changes without board approval." I tried to stay calm. "Ma'am, this isn't part of your HOA. The deed's from 1870. Your community didn't even exist back then." But she just laughed, that loud, fake laugh that says, "I don't care about facts." "We voted to expand the HOA boundaries," she said, "so technically it's ours now." Her friends nodded, smug. One even started taking photos of my house like they were gathering evidence. That's when I realized this wasn't about rules. This was about control. I walked to my truck, pulled out the folder with my paperwork, and laid it flat on the hood. "Here's the county map," I said, tapping the line that clearly separated my land. "Everything past this fence is private ranch property, mine." Karen crossed her arms, sneering. "Not for long," she muttered. "You'll be out of here by next week." Then she snapped a picture of my license plate and walked off, whispering something about getting the board involved. I watched her leave, heart pounding, trying to figure out what game she was playing. I didn't know it yet, but that was just the beginning. The next time she showed up, she wouldn't be alone, and she'd bring something far worse than a fake notice. The next morning, I heard tires crunching on the gravel again. I looked out the window, and my stomach dropped. Karen was back, but this time she wasn't alone. A white pickup with flashing amber lights was parked behind her SUV. 2 men in neon vests stepped out, holding clipboards like they were on official duty. She yelled before I could even open the door, "We're here to inspect your illegal construction!" I stepped onto the porch slowly, keeping my calm. "Illegal?" I asked. "I'm repairing my porch railing. It's been falling apart for 50 years. She smirked. "The HOA board determined you're building without approval. These men are from community enforcement." I looked at the 2 men. Their vests didn't have any logos, no badges, just cheap reflective strips. "Community enforcement, huh?" I said quietly. "You guys work for the county?" They didn't answer. One of them just started taking photos of my tools. That's when it hit me. They weren't officials. They were hired muscle. "Ma'am," I said firmly, "you and your friends are trespassing. Step back from my property." She crossed her arms, grinning like she'd already won. "Or what? You'll call the cops? Go ahead. I am the law here." I almost laughed, but I didn't. Instead, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and hit record. "Good," I said calmly. "Keep talking." Her face shifted for a moment, realizing she was on camera. But she tried to recover, waving her fake papers in front of the lens. "Record all you want. The HOA will have you evicted by Monday." I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. "Funny thing about that," I said. "You're talking to a man who spent 20 years training county deputies on property law." For the first time, she blinked. The color drained from her face. I locked eyes with her and added, "So maybe you should think twice before faking authority on someone else's land." She froze, then spun around, barking at the fake inspectors to leave. But as they drove off, I knew she wasn't done. People like her never stop until they're humiliated or caught. And that night, when the sound of engines woke me up again, I realized she'd just made her next move. One that could have gotten someone killed. It was almost midnight when I heard the sound. Low rumbling, like engines idling just outside my fence line. I slipped on my boots and grabbed the flashlight, stepping out into the cold night air. The beam cut through the dust, and what I saw made my blood boil. 3 trucks were lined up by my gate, and Karen was there again, wrapped in a puffy jacket, pointing like a commander. "She's actually doing this," I muttered. I walked closer, and one of the men in the trucks revved the engine. The noise was deafening. Karen turned and shouted, "We're clearing this area tonight. The HOA approved the removal of unauthorized structures." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Unauthorized?" I yelled back. "You're on my land. You're trespassing." She smirked. "Not for long. Once we pull down that fence, it becomes community access property." I took a step forward, flashlight steady in my hand. "You touch that fence, and you'll regret it." Her men started moving, one with a chain, hooking it to the corner post. My pulse spiked, but I kept my voice calm. "You got paperwork for this?" I asked. Karen folded her arms, fake confidence plastered on her face. "Don't need it. HOA jurisdiction covers this area now." I almost laughed. "Lady, this ranch has been in county records since 1870. You can't rewrite history with a vote in your Facebook group." One of the men hesitated, glancing at me. "Ma'am, maybe we should call the sheriff first." Karen cut him off, screaming, "Do it! Pull it now!" But before they could, my headlights flashed across the field. 2 patrol trucks rolling in, slow and steady. Karen's face turned pale. "Who called the cops?" I just smiled. "You did. Remember that recording I took? I sent it to a buddy of mine at the sheriff's office." The deputy stepped out, flashlights in hand. "Evening," one said. "Got a report about a possible trespass and property damage." Karen started stuttering. No, he's the one breaking the law. This is HOA land." The deputy looked at me, then back at her. "Ma'am, this ranch isn't under any HOA. It's registered as private property under his name." Karen's jaw dropped. She started to argue, but the deputy held up a hand. "You and your friends need to leave before we start writing charges." She froze, glared at me one last time, and hissed, "This isn't over." I watched her taillights fade into the dark. I wanted to believe it was finished, but something told me she'd come back, and when she did, it wouldn't be with trucks. It'd be with something a lot more dangerous. The next morning was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that feels planned. I brewed a pot of coffee, stepped onto the porch, and noticed something strange. My mailbox was stuffed full, papers jammed in like someone had tried to make a point. I pulled them out, eviction notices, violation citations, even a community fine order, all printed with HOA logos, but none with official stamps or county seals. My stomach tightened. Karen had gone from trespassing to full-blown fraud. I called the county clerk's office to double-check. The woman on the phone sighed. "Sir, you wouldn't be the first. We've had complaints about that HOA before. They've been trying to claim land that doesn't belong to them." So it wasn't just me. Karen had been pulling this trick on others, maybe for years. I decided right then. I was done being polite. By noon, I was at the records office, scanning through files, and that's when I found something that made my hands tremble. The HOA had submitted a property expansion proposal with forged signatures, mine included. I looked closer. The signature wasn't just fake, it was copied from an old veterans housing document I'd filed years ago. Somehow, she'd gotten access to it. I took a photo of everything and sent it to my buddy Mike, deputy sheriff, and someone I'd trained back when I was still in service. His reply came fast. "Keep everything, don't confront her yet, we'll set her up properly." That night, I kept my lights off and watched from my window. Sure enough, around 10 p.m., Karen's car rolled up again. She got out with a flashlight and a folder under her arm, looking around like she was doing something official. I started recording. She opened my gate, walked up to my porch, and slid another official HOA document under my door. Then she took a photo of it as proof. That was all I needed. Evidence caught red-handed. But before I could even feel satisfied, my phone buzzed. A text from Mike popped up. Heads up, she just filed a police report saying you threatened her with a gun. I froze, staring out at her silhouette under the porch light. Karen wasn't just lying anymore. She was trying to destroy me. Within minutes, the sound of sirens pierced the quiet night. Red and blue lights flashed through the trees, cutting across my porch. My heart sank. I knew this was Karen's next move. I'd seen people like her before. They'd rather burn down someone's life than admit they're wrong. 3 patrol cars pulled up. I raised my hand slowly and stepped outside, calm but cautious. One of the officers shouted, "Sir, step away from the house." Karen was standing by the road, fake tears streaking down her face. "That's him," she cried. "He pointed a gun at me. He threatened to shoot me if I came near his property." The officer looked tense, his hand resting on his holster. "Sir, do you have any firearms on you right now?" I kept my voice even. "No, sir, but I'd like you to check my porch camera footage before you decide anything." Karen gasped dramatically, clutching her chest. "He's lying! He erased it! I interrupted softly. "Actually, I don't delete my recordings. It's cloud-backed. You'll want to see the timestamp, around 10:06 p.m., when she trespassed and slid another forged notice under my door." The officer hesitated, glancing at her. "Ma'am, did you approach his property tonight?" Karen's voice cracked. "I was just doing my duty as HOA president. He's dangerous." But the deputy I knew, Mike, stepped out of one of the patrol trucks then, calm as ever. He gave me a small nod before addressing the other officers. "Hold on, let's check his footage." Karen froze. "You can't." "Oh, we can," Mike said firmly. "You filed a police report. That makes this evidence." He connected to my camera feed right there from his tablet. Within seconds, the truth was glowing on the screen. Karen walking right up to my porch. No fear, no gun pointed at her, sliding papers, snapping photos. Silence. The other officers looked at each other. One muttered, "That's perjury if she signed a false statement." Mike crossed his arms. "And trespassing, falsifying documents, and harassment. Looks like we've got ourselves a serial HOA scammer." Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her face turned red as she stammered, You can't arrest me! I'm the president of this community!" Mike stepped closer, pulling out the cuffs. "Ma'am, you're not the law. You've been impersonating it." As he read her rights, she glared at me, that same fire in her eyes, now mixed with humiliation. "You think you've won?" she hissed. I looked at her, calm and steady. "No, I just stopped you from hurting anyone else." When the patrol cars rolled away, their lights fading into the dark, I finally exhaled. The night went quiet again, peaceful this time. But deep down, I knew there was still one thing left to uncover: how far her fake HOA really went, and who was helping her behind the scenes. The next morning, I drove straight to the county office with a flash drive full of evidence. Every fake notice, every photo, every minute of footage. Mike met me there, and together we handed everything to the investigator in charge. As soon as she started reviewing the files, her face hardened. "This isn't just one woman's scheme," she said quietly. "Your HOA president's been filing property claims for half this valley. She's been selling them off on paper to investors who don't even know the land's already owned." I frowned. "You're saying she was running a land scam?" The investigator nodded, and she didn't do it alone. We went through the documents one by one, and there it was, a signature I recognized from one of the fake eviction letters, Thomas Grant, the county zoning officer, the same man who'd ignored my calls when I first moved in. Mike clenched his jaw. Figures. She had someone inside the office helping her make it all look official. By afternoon, a sting was in motion. Mike arranged for Karen to be called in for evidence review. What she didn't know was that every word would be recorded, and Thomas Grant would be in the room. From the observation window, I watched them both sit down across from the investigator. Karen was shaking, but still trying to sound confident. "This is ridiculous. I was just protecting community property." The investigator slid a folder across the table. Then explain these forged deeds. They've got your signature and his. Thomas's face went pale. Wait, no, I didn't. Karen cut him off. You told me it was fine. You said the expansion would pass. Not like this, he barked. You were supposed to get consent. That was all it took. Every word caught on record. An hour later, both were in cuffs. Mike came out of the interview room smirking. That's the cleanest confession I've ever seen. I nodded slowly, still trying to process it all. So, it's over? He clapped my shoulder. For them, yeah, but the county's about to do a full audit. You might have just saved a dozen families from losing their land. I looked out the window, the wide open fields glowing under the sun. My land, my peace. But as I stood there, one thought kept echoing in my mind. Justice doesn't always come easy. Sometimes you have to build it yourself. And for the first time in months, I felt like the ranch was truly mine again. Quiet, safe, and free from anyone pretending to own what they never earned. A week passed, and life finally started to feel normal again. The old ranch, once surrounded by chaos, now stood in calm silence. The repairs I'd started that first week were nearly finished, and the scent of fresh wood filled the air. But the peace didn't last long, because one morning, a sleek black SUV rolled up the dirt road. It wasn't the police this time. It was a man in a suit with mirrored sunglasses and a briefcase. He stepped out like he owned the place. "Morning," I said cautiously. "Can I help you?" He smiled, that kind of polite corporate smile that never reaches the eyes. "Mr. Carson, right? I represent a few investors who recently purchased rights to this land. I'm here to discuss your relocation options." I froze. Relocation? He nodded smoothly. "Yes, sir. The HOA president you dealt with was overzealous, but she wasn't wrong about the paperwork. The sale went through last month. Technically, this land's been rezoned." I took a slow step forward, jaw tightening. "You're telling me someone sold my ranch while the owner was living on it?" He didn't even flinch. "It happens more often than you'd think, but I'm here to make this painless. My clients are offering you a generous buyout if you agree to vacate within 10 days. For a moment, I just stared at him. My gut told me this went deeper. Karen wasn't the head of the snake. She was just a pawn. "I'll tell you what," I said quietly. "You come back tomorrow. I'll have something ready for your clients." He smiled again. "That's what I like to hear." Then he turned, got in his SUV, and drove off, leaving a trail of dust and a dozen questions in his wake. That night, I pulled out my old laptop and opened every document I'd collected, the deeds, the zoning maps, the emails Mike had forwarded. And there it was, a name buried deep in the records. Henderson Land Holdings, a shell company owned by someone I never expected, the county commissioner himself. It all clicked. Karen's fake HOA, Thomas Grant's forged documents, they were all working under the same man, the one sitting in a government office pretending to serve the people he was stealing from. I leaned back, staring at the glowing screen. My voice came out in a whisper. So that's who's really behind it. And just like that, my mission changed. This wasn't just about defending my ranch anymore. It was about exposing everyone who tried to take it. The next morning, I packed my old military gear, not for war, but for proof. Because this time, I wasn't waiting for justice to knock on my door. I was bringing it straight to theirs. The courthouse was crowded that morning. Reporters, county officials, and half the neighborhood that Karen had once bullied into silence. I walked in quietly, wearing my old jacket and a calm expression that hid everything I was about to do. Inside the hearing room, the commissioner sat at the front, smug and comfortable, surrounded by lawyers. Henderson Land Holdings banners were neatly stacked on the side table, ready to be shown as new community development plans. He didn't notice me at first, but when I took a seat up front, across from him, his eyes narrowed. "Mr. Carson," he said, forcing a smile, "I wasn't aware this was open to the public." "Public land, right?" I said. "I figured I'd come see who really owns it." The judge entered, and the hearing began. Their attorney started spinning lies about community growth, legal expansion, and voluntary buyouts. It sounded polished, until I stood up and interrupted. "Your Honor," I said clearly, "I have evidence this expansion was built on forged documents, fake HOA votes, and illegal zoning claims." The judge frowned. "Do you have proof?" I nodded toward the screen Mike was setting up in the back. "All of it, ma'am." The lights dimmed and the footage started to play. Karen sneaking onto my porch. Thomas signing false deeds. The commissioner's own emails approving quiet transfers under Henderson's name. Gasps filled the room. The commissioner's face went white. "This is out of context," he started, but Mike cut him off, handing the judge a folder. "Full verification from the county records. Nothing's out of context." Karen, sitting in custody nearby, buried her face in her hands. Thomas stared at the floor. The judge's gavel slammed down. "Effective immediately, all land transfers connected to Henderson Holdings are null and void. An investigation will be opened for corruption and fraud." It was over. As the commissioner was led out in handcuffs, his eyes met mine. "You'll regret this," he hissed. I shook my head. "No, you just taught this whole town what happens when someone thinks they're above the law." Outside, the sun was bright, the kind that warms your skin and your soul. Reporters tried to swarm me, asking how it felt to win. I just smiled. "I didn't win," I said. "The land did. The truth did." That evening, I rode out across the field. The wind brushed through the tall grass, and for the first time, it felt like the ranch was breathing again, free. I stopped by the fence Karen once tried to tear down, running my hand along the old wood. "You fought for this country once," I whispered to myself. "Now you fought for your home." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I finally felt peace. Not the kind that's given, but the kind you earn. Because some battles aren't about land or rules, they're about standing your ground when no one else will.